Welcome Diecast fans, I'm Tom Spanners-Watson.
And I'm Frank the Guru Gibbs.
And it's time for another episode of the DSPN. We've got all the usual things on tonight, but it is another huge episode, bigger again than last week, and we're going to kick off with the Diecast International Race Series. So this is a series that starts on Monday over at RTR Diecast Racing League's channel. We've been involved along with 3 other channels, so RTR, Flat Rabbit and Jackson Pass. Definitely going to want to check it out. It's a very unique series. Speaking of unique, Hotwheels Calgary are running the Birdco 1000. It's a mail-in event kicking off on the 1st of January 2021. Head over to his channel to check out the details. Huge happy birthday to Redline Derby, turned 11 this month. That is huge. These guys have been around for ages and they provide a great service for everyone. And speaking of Redline, League of Speed, one of the key people over there, is running the Dixie Grand Prix this weekend. Head over to League of Speed's channel to check that out. And our good friend Brian over at Flat Rabbit put on an awesome show this week with a behind the scenes look at his track, looking at some of the original tracks he came up with, the ideas behind Flat Rabbit, how it all came about, and it's just some great behind the scenes stuff. Go and check out at the track section. And finally in the news, we have a modified car photo competition that'll be running each week, and if we pick your car photo, it will be the thumbnail for the next week's DSPN report. Head over to chaoscanyon.online for details. It'll be in the forum.
Then in the tips section, over at mycustomhotwheels.com, they've got a great guide on making hinges. I realise it's not a thing for you racers out there, but those of you wanting to make really cool dioramas or custom mod cars, have a look at that one. There's some great ideas. And for those of you not into modding per se, there's a great discussion over on redlinederby.com about painting non-modified cars. So this isn't drilling it out and pulling it apart and then putting it back together. This is painting a completely stock car. Have a look at that one. There's some great tips there.
We're going to kick off the drag racing with Diecast RacerX first up, and this race here, if you have a look, so it was a close one to begin with, but have a look at the slow motion replay here and you see the first car get tangled up, and then it's like every time he changes gear he kicks the tail end out in that Corvette. Just, you see it there, he's like spinning his wheels, he's trying to go so fast. I thought that was really cool.
And then Red Pill Racing, we're doing some testing on a range of cars, and we just wanted to show these two here. So obviously not your traditional sort of cars that you see, but man, these things were fast, and look at those times, just so incredibly close.
And then BlueLine Racing did a funny cars event that was quite interesting. So a range of different funny cars, straight up drag racing, good races there, you know, nice long track, seamless track, very cool, all timed.
And then War on I-4 did something quite different. They actually set up a short drag track for their new Grudge race series. And this was really cool, you know, so it's always nice to see channels doing something a bit different. And you see this one here, it just comes down. So they are accelerating the entire way and there's only a very small run out. So it's quite different to most of the other drag racing out there.
Speaking of big downhills, Skydrop over at Rust Belt Racing has just been re-engineered slightly and relaunched, and some of these races were just insanely close. This one here, these guys are coming down absolutely neck and neck right to the finish.
Diecast Draggor continued on with his gang wars on the Friday night. So he's running 4 cars down, so it starts off with lanes and then goes back to his old fat track idea. And I love this move here where 3 cars get tangled up and you see the white car here just pull through this tiny little gap and pick his lane perfectly.
Lamchops, so we've featured these guys before. They do live drag racing and it is huge. This particular episode, the latest one, is like 2.5 hours long of just all drag racing. I love that track, it's a great idea. Have a look at that one if you haven't checked it out.
And then WeRaceDiecast continued on with their 5-pack series, and I love how straight so many of these cars are on this track. You know, obviously there's a few that get completely loose, like the Bone Shaker there just goes sideways and a few others push others around, but man, some of those cars are just dead straight. It's beautiful to watch. And we've talked about this before, when you hit an open track, it's really important that your car can stay straight. To me, that's the sign of a great race car.
And then Summers Raceway, so we featured these guys in Track Spy last week, have put on another tournament again. It's a short track, but it's straight up drag racing, and I was impressed how much distance that car that won that particular race had over the field, considering it's such a short race.
M&M is another laned track to fat track, and look at the way this Mustang just takes out the Camaro at the start here. And this is what I was saying about you've got to be able to stay straight. And he just flips that guy around and then ends up going all the way back to third. You see it here in slow motion. He like pulls a pit maneuver on it, and he's trying to pinball around and take out all of the competition, and even the purple, I think it was a Camaro there, trying to slip past it. Was it? Can't quite tell, but you know, very, very close racing.
Then Rob over at Wallside Diecast Racing had another great series on, and you know, we've always enjoyed this track. It's got the two big drop, or the one medium-sized drop, and then the death drop off the other side. And this is why it's called the death drop. Look at this.
Oh, that is brutal. And where'd he go?
And look how far the Range Rover slides on its side. It was brilliant.
And then my Hot Wheels collection put on a special Ford Transit Connect van competition. So straight up drag racing and all the different types. It was great to watch.
Sonora Diecast Racing League had a mixed bag this week. So they had some Mario Kart, Thomas the Tank Engine, and some other random cars. But we really like this one, where you see them come down and oh man, he just slams into the finish gate, can't fit through because he's too big, and then the others just cause mass carnage.
And then over at Greatest of All Time Racing, man, they had some insanely close races this week. Look at that. Like, that's barely a bumper's width apart. And it wasn't just one race, you know, there were a couple of races there that were just incredibly close. It was awesome to watch. Love that.
Okay, moving across into tournaments, we kick off with Hot Car Track and their continuation of the Lamborghini tournament. Now this has been a great series so far with just some amazing racing, and it's really cool to see so many cars going down his track at once. You know, it's been an unusual setup for him, but we love this one here, not because of the race, but because of the finish. Look at the way these two Lambos slam into each other, and look how much height that guy gets. That is crazy, and then backs up into the pits, which is probably the best place for him to go and check his suspension.
And then Mark over at Jackson Pass Speedway carried on their Battle of the Centuries, and there was some really good racing. Now this is their original track that they had, and since this race was run, they've actually done some major upgrades. They've changed to crash races instead of your traditional scissors fat track. And here's just a little sneak peek of what the track looks like now. They've done some fantastic work, and I can't wait to see the full proper launch of that coming out very shortly.
Wow, that looks amazing. And then Cleveland City Diecast Racing carried on with their Ford versus Ferrari tournament, and this was a fantastic race. That red Mustang was well behind, and then going through that corkscrew manages to pull in front. I'm not entirely sure what happened because it's kind of obscured, but look how far behind that red car is, and then comes out of there with a beautiful overtake maneuver, gets a little bit tied up, but still manages to go through for the win. Great racing there.
And then Checkered Flag Contention put on a new race with some open wheelers, and this was a lot of fun. There was all sorts of carnage going on there, cars flipping upside down, cars getting tangled up, and you see this one race here, this last one. This one guy, the gold one at the back, has flipped over and he gets pushed all the way to the finish line. He's like flipped halfway down the track and still made it to the finish. That was cool.
And then moving over to Indiana Diecast Racing and their IDR Open with the next round. And this was another great race. You know, this is another Crash Races track, and there's been some awesome racing here. See this red car well out in front, but then goes a little bit skew-iff there. And look at that overtake maneuver. You'll see it on another angle here. Car goes around, flips, and there's just like a hair's width between them. But that black car slips through for take the win. That was just a fantastically timed piece of driving. Loved it.
And we mentioned Aaron at Hot Wheels Calgary before about the Birdco 1000. This is just part of his daily races. So if you're looking for diecast racing regularly, go and check out Hot Wheels Calgary. They do daily races like this. It's really cool to see.
Then One Man Racing continued on with his series, and you see there one of the cars getting hooked up in that first corner. But I think they may have made some track changes there. It just looked like a couple of new corners that have been 3D printed, but great track. Love the theming on this track, and you see here in the replay, this guy comes down, oh, that is a hard hit. He just slams right into that track divider.
And Rocky Mountain Diecast Racing League have taken a break for quite a while because they've just had a baby, so congratulations guys. But it was really nice to see them back racing, and you see here one car well out in front, but watch as the other cars come around this last corner. Camera pans back and like 3 of them just bail off that corner. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
And speaking of bailing, Mass Carnage continued over at the Canyon, and there was just some crazy driving as we've come to expect from this series. Cars bouncing all over the place. This particular one where that car rode down on its nose, went upside down and managed to flip back on its wheels was just crazy. And we had some really good finishes as well. I was really surprised by that. And this was one of the best ones in the final lap of Group 7. One car was well out front, and then the 2 in behind managed to not only avoid crashing into him too badly, but then pull ahead for the win. And it was just awesome to see. And then in Group 8, there was absolute carnage. Just total carnage in that race. And we've seen this red truck before do a similar move. Thankfully, we'd moved all the food trucks in the crowd out of that area.
Yeah, it's definitely much safer. And then Irons Diecast Racing, we showed this track in Track Spy last week, and they've got a new setup this time with this big S curves. I really thought that was a cool setup as well. So they've done some really cool things with what they've got, and I like the fact that it's outdoors. It just makes it a little bit different to some of the others.
And then DC World Racing at Fraser Ridge continued on with the Java Cup. And you see in this race here, just a nice overtake by that Nomad coming out of the tunnel there, and just some very close finishes in this race. It was really cool to see. I'm not quite sure whether Bel Air's going backwards from the start, but it certainly worked for him in that race.
And then another live racing was over at Low Country Diecast Racing. So this is a great big track, and they just put on, I think it was like 20 or 30 minutes of just live racing. It was really cool to watch. So if that's your bag, go and check that one out. All the links to these channels will be in the description if you're looking for them.
Moving into street racing, 3D Bot Maker carried on with the King of the Mountain, and this time it was all German cars. And he even used your favourite line, Frank.
Oh, did he? What particular line was that?
Giving it the beans.
Oh yeah, that's what I always say. Speaking of giving it the beans, mate, Mike over at RTR continued on with his Saturday Night Grudge Fests, and this time it was the Subaru's turn. And I particularly like this race here because you see this white Subaru out in front, give it the beans over this jump, huge big leap to the finish, and then the blue one there just like drags his butt along the grass. I'm not sure if he had a dag hanging out or something, but it was just hilarious.
And we go back to Diecast RacerX and his street challenge here. So this is one of the shorter tracks that he has, but just some really cool racing on that track. And again, it's another channel with a lot of regular racing if you're looking for content.
And then Chapman Films had their Friday night cheese races, and that modified truck has just got so much weight in it. It's brutal. I'm surprised it didn't just take out the corners, but you can see how high he's riding there. But it was a lot of fun to watch as well.
Now into special events. There's actually quite a few in this one. So first up was the final of the DRC. So this was the series that really kicked off this year for 3D Bot Maker, and each one was huge, and this one was no exception. Angie Stig there with a great jump at the finish, and you see in the replay from this other angle as Angie flips off, takes out the camera, knocks down a spectator, and then this dude just passes out of shock, I presume.
And then Big Poppy continued on with his diecast games, so this time it was the quarter mile drags. Nice continuous track, timed event. Have a look at that one, some great drag racing.
Now Stuntman Sam has obviously inspired a number of other stunt people around the world. This one from our friends over at DRC Racing doing a huge fire leap here. Not quite as clean a landing as Sam, but it's still a very cool stunt and a huge flame that they had.
That was massive. And speaking of crazy jumps, this one from Hot Wheels Boys in New Zealand, we love the chaos, as you know, and check out these jumps. This is just incredible. Like, they just get so much height off such a short little ramp. It's brilliant. I mean, the escort that's out in front is quite wild, but the two in behind seem to take that jump really well.
And G&R Vintage Diecast Racing did something quite different outside in the snow with their rally event, and there were cars flying off the track. They just disappear randomly. I hope they actually found them in the snow and they didn't just lose a bunch of them, but it was very, very cool to watch. A lot of fun.
And then Irwell Ridge was another one that we highlighted last week. So he's put out another race between a Subaru and an Alfa Romeo, and man, it's just so much fun to watch this track. It's so much carnage, it's brilliant. I just love it.
And then Diablo Ridge continued on with their monster truck event, and this time it was the backflip. And that was just so fast, but he does a really cool slow-mo here. And look at that, from cross over at Flat Rabbit. Just a stunning bit of car control.
And speaking of car control, mate, stuntman Sam had to step it up for his fans, jumped 2 choppers and a fire pit this time. So he did 1 chopper a couple of weeks back, and everybody wanted it bigger, and Sam delivered in spades. Look at the way he handles this bike, mate. That is just perfectly balanced, and he lands that jump absolutely superbly. And then his brother had to have a go, Max Havoc, but his idea was a little bit different. He actually pulled that off exactly how he planned. So he wanted to take out the chopper and land directly in the fire pit. And you see it here, he slides in between the blades, smashes the chopper out of the air, cartwheels the car over, and lands perfectly in the flaming pit, exactly as planned.
That man is absolutely crazy.
And then we missed this one a couple of weeks back, unfortunately. So this is Kit Tayam over at Diecast Racing Report, put on the 8 Modders competition, and he actually ran the races, and we missed this unfortunately just with everything that was going on, so we wanted to get it in tonight. And that's Mike Mays there absolutely blitzing Michael's Diecast Garage. It was like a mic battle. And then finally Evo Sparks does these great car reviews. This is a 1/24th diecast, not a Hot Wheels, but we just really like his reviews. They're very classily done, very nicely shot, and they look like a proper car show. It's very cool.
Then in Grassroots Racing, Ren's Diecast Racing have just put out a little sneak peek of their new track that they're working on. And again, we love to see people's innovation, putting tracks in small spaces, making the most of it.
And then Crash of the Week goes to Max, but this isn't the one you've just seen. This is the one before that didn't go to plan, or to his plan. And look how many times he cartwheels all the way down the landing ramp and then lands on his wheels and drives off. That was just brilliant.
It certainly was. Well, it has been a huge week here, another huge DSPN report. We hope you've enjoyed it. As always, thanks very much to redlinederby.com, an absolutely fantastic resource for anybody looking to run a race, ask questions about diecast modding, whatever you got, head over to redlinederby.com. And also check out the Diecast Racing Report, and of course the Diecast International Race Series kicking off at Maze Mountain Motor Speedway over at RTR Diecast Racing League's channel on Monday. So there'll be 2 nights of racing, Monday, Tuesday at RTR next week. The following week it'll be Monday, Tuesday at Flat Rabbit. The following week after that, Monday, Tuesday at Jackson Pass, and then finally wrapping up at the Canyon, Monday, Tuesday with a big final on the Wednesday. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Tom Spanis Watson. He's Frank the Guru Gibbs. We'll see you next time.